By the third week, General Buchanan stormed into the room with his entourage, followed by Brenda and Henry. I was seated at the desk, practicing handwriting when he stopped and stared. "Is it really Rhodes?" "Yes, General," Kruger said. "Amazing." The general stepped closer. "Jack." "Good morning, General," I replied. He blinked, then smiled thinly. "I don't believe it," he muttered. "General," I began, "why has my security clearance changed? And when can I leave this place?" Buchanan's smile turned sharp. "You no longer have clearance because you are no longer Professor Jack Rhodes." "But I don't see Professor Jack Rhodes here," Buchanan cut me off. "Do you?" he asked the others, who all shook their heads. "We have no way of knowing your intentions. As for leaving, I'm afraid you are a classified case, and we must ensure you pose no risk before any release." "General," Kruger interjected, "our tests confirm this treatment cannot spread casually. It only works under controlled medical conditions." "No matter," Buchanan dismissed him. "This is a potential asset, and it remains contained until I decide otherwise." I bristled at being referred to as it, but Brenda's quick glance warned me to hold back. She spoke instead. "I'm compiling my recommendations, General." "Good. Send them to me." "I'm afraid my orders are to send them directly to the White House," Brenda said smoothly. His glare flickered, then he forced a smile. "Of course, but send me a copy." "I will," she said politely. He stormed out. Kruger gave me a rueful grin and followed. Brenda turned back to me. "I think we should get you dressed and go for a walk." She tilted her head slightly toward the corner of the room, and I understood. We were being monitored. "That sounds wonderful," I said with a bright smile. We passed through several checkpoints before reaching a small walled courtyard with birch trees and a square of lawn. Brenda sat on a stone bench and spoke quietly while facing away from the camera. "Listen carefully," she said. "Buchanan wants to keep you here indefinitely or worse, so the secret of the mask formula never leaks." Then she stood and paced, as though performing for the cameras. "I believe that in time you will adapt fully to your new identity. My recommendation is that you remain here under observation for 8 to 12 months. Once it's clear you can live independently, you should be released to start a new life." I turned slightly so the camera could see my expression. I realized what had to be done. To escape, I had to convince them Jack Rhodes was gone. I had to act the part. "That sounds reasonable," I said with a smile. "General Buchanan seems like a fair man." Brenda blinked. We both knew otherwise, but played along. "I'll need guidance, though." "All of that will be provided," she said. "And I think you should start fresh with a new name." "How about Jackie?" "Jackie," I repeated, smiling. "I like it. Jacqueline has a nice sound." In truth, I had never thought about names before. But if I had to play a role, I would. An Oscar-worthy performance, if that's what it took, until I could one day reverse this. "Good," Brenda sighed in relief. "We can begin. Anything else?" "Yes," I said, remembering to smile. "I'd like a refresher in medicine. Perhaps I could qualify as a general practitioner. That way I can continue contributing to science when I start over." "That's an excellent idea," Brenda nodded. "It keeps the Rhodes expertise alive while helping the community. We'll adjust the records accordingly." I agreed outwardly, though my real plan was different. Practicing medicine would put me close to research facilities, exactly where I needed to be to fix what had happened. As we returned, I studied every woman who passed. If I was going to succeed, I had to observe carefully, adopt their habits, their mannerisms. I smiled at Brenda. She smiled back. Jack Rhodes was disappearing, but inside I was already planning my return. Part 3, and the Oscar goes to. Brenda and the nurses had stocked my wardrobe early on, though I had avoided dresses and skirts. The next morning, I stared at them and told myself it was time. I dressed in the bathroom, where I hoped there was still some privacy from the ever-present cameras. It wasn't modesty. I still didn't feel this body was mine, but I didn't want to be watched unnecessarily. When I emerged in a blue dress, Brenda and Christine, the nurse, were visibly surprised. "That looks lovely," Brenda said. "I just felt like a change," I explained with a small smile. "I'm not sure it suits me, though." "It does," Christine replied quickly. "Perhaps with this belt at the waist." "And these shoes," Brenda added. rummaging through the closet. I nodded, satisfied. What about my hair? I asked, flicking the long dark strands over my shoulder. It's thick and beautiful, Christine said admiringly. We can arrange a hairdresser if you like, Brenda offered. I forced a bright smile. Would you? That would be wonderful. Tomorrow then, Brenda nodded. And perhaps some lessons in makeup? Yes, please, I said warmly. Anything you think I should learn. And so a routine began. Each morning I dressed, styled my hair, and practiced makeup before meeting Brenda, Christine, and Dr. Sue Collins for breakfast. They were clearly observing me, but I was studying them just as carefully. Quietly, I was perfecting an act that would convince them all. After breakfast, I spent an hour completing assessments for the scientists, while Professor Kruger often stopped by for casual chats. He was careful never to reveal anything about the mask formula. I didn't ask, and outwardly I acted bored, but inwardly I filed every detail away. Tutorials followed, covering daily habits, health, clothing, and even relationships. I listened carefully, storing each lesson to strengthen my cover. When they suggested cooking classes, I raised an eyebrow. What for? You'll need to eat, Christine pointed out with a laugh. And, from what I hear, Professor Rhodes couldn't even boil water. They were watching me, I suspected, so I played along. You're right, why not learn? I said with a smile. To my surprise, I enjoyed cooking. Each recipe was like solving a puzzle, and soon I began to look forward to the classes. Spending my days mostly with women, I found the conversations wide-ranging and insightful. I learned more than I expected about them, and about how I needed to carry myself. Afternoons were devoted to the medical refresher course. It was a relief to return to something black and white, something I knew so well. Still, I struggled with the changes. Mood swings and unexpected emotions frustrated me. Once, I even cried at the happy ending of a movie, something I never would have allowed before. Brenda noticed, but I covered it quickly. As part of training, I began shifts in the base hospital, first observing, then assisting as a doctor. I loved it. Long hours, teamwork, real cases. Soon, I was accepted as one of the team. Everyone saw me as Jackie. Everyone except Buchanan. The general remained skeptical. 10 months passed before I realized he was finally convinced. One day, Brenda and I were laughing in the canteen when he approached. Am I interrupting, ladies? He asked stiffly. Not at all, I replied. He looked uneasy, as though unsure how to address me. I wanted to let you know we've completed your documentation. It'll be available next week. What does that mean, General? I asked politely. You'll have a birth certificate, driver's license, and medical registration to practice as a doctor. A passport will have to wait. I rose, touched his arm lightly, and smiled. Thank you. That's very kind. He blushed, nodded, and left quickly. Well, Brenda said with a grin, I think you've joined the club. What club? Christine laughed. Don't play innocent, Jackie. That charm may work on men, but not on us. I winked, and we all laughed together. That night, I lay in bed satisfied. My act was working. Everyone believed I had no desire to be Jack Rhodes again. Sometimes I almost convinced myself. Perhaps I should have been an actor, I thought. I was playing this role flawlessly. But Buchanan hadn't given up. A month later, Bob Jones, an old colleague, visited. Hi there, Jack, he said casually. I need another sample. Of course, I replied with a smile, extending my arm. But I prefer Jackie. Sure, he muttered. You must have barrels of my blood by now, I joked. He looked at me strangely. Then he pricked my finger sharply. Pain shot through and a tear welled up before I could stop it. That hurt, I murmured, sucking at the spot. He froze. My reaction wasn't anger, it was gentleness, something he hadn't expected. Sorry, he said quickly. Accident. I smiled and touched his shoulder lightly. That's okay. I should be used to needles by now. He left, still puzzled. But I knew I had passed the last test. The next day, I sat with Buchanan, Kruger, Brenda, and Murphy. We think you're ready to leave, Jackie, Kruger said warmly. How do you feel? Honestly? A little frightened, I admitted, letting my voice quiver. It was partly true. That's natural, Murphy said. They handed me a folder. Inside were my documents, accounts, and funds, compensation for my ordeal. You'll check in with Dr. Peters weekly, Buchanan said. Of course. I'd want to, I smiled. Brenda squeezed my hand in reassurance. You're free to go, Murphy added. It took a week before I found the courage. Brenda and Christine took me shopping in town. I bought clothes, practical ones for a doctor, though they teased me toward more stylish choices. I even bought a car. Driving again felt strange, but freeing. The farewell the next day was tearful. The hospital team gave me a cap embroidered with MD and hugged me goodbye. Brenda and Christine embraced me tightly. I promised to visit, though deep down I doubted I would. If I ever returned to being Jack, they wouldn't know me. The thought stung. Driving south toward Atlanta, I planned to look for work at teaching hospitals. I stopped at a motel for the night and, out of habit, dressed up before going to the lounge. The bartender smiled as I sat down. I ordered a drink. Not to your liking, she asked when I sipped. I smiled sheepishly. A friend recommended it, but I guess it's not for me. Let me swap it for you, the bartender said, whisking my glass away. Moments later, she returned with a new drink in a small glass, light green with a slice of lemon on the rim. I reached for my purse, but she waved it off. No charge, I rarely make cocktails here. It's a pleasure. Tell me what you think. I sipped cautiously through the straw. It's delicious, I smiled, and it truly was. But then I noticed the bar had grown crowded. A group of men had drifted from their tables to the counter, most of them glancing in my direction. I sighed inwardly. Brenda had warned me I might draw attention in ways I hadn't expected, and it seemed she was right. Another adjustment to deal with. A large man pushed forward and loomed nearby. Hi there. What brings you here? I'm just traveling through, I said, looking for a chance to slip away. Are you in sales? Medicine, I replied, rising from the stool. Pharmaceutical sales, he pressed. No, I said firmly, I'm actually a doctor. And you, I added, pointing to his flushed cheeks, should probably have your blood pressure checked. A ripple of laughter followed, and I seized the chance to leave, abandoning my half-finished drink. Back in my room, I paced angrily. Ridiculous. I can't even enjoy a quiet evening alone. Ordering food to my room, I tried to relax with a movie. But truthfully, after months surrounded by people, solitude felt unfamiliar, even unsettling. Vulnerability crept in. Stay calm, I told myself. Once you restart your research to change back, things will be fine. With that thought, I switched off the light and slept uneasily my first night of freedom.